11 Spine-Chilling Waffle House Encounters. Sinister secrets exposed that will haunt your nights. The neon sign flickered, casting a sickly glow over the empty diner. Sarah ditched her apron, wiped her brow, and glanced nervously at the clock. 11 o'clock, and the last remnants of the late-night crowd had dwindled to a whisper. The familiar sounds of clattering dishes and sizzling bacon faded away, leaving only the hum of the jukebox and the fear that loomed larger than the shadows. It was just her and the darkness now, but was it really just darkness? She was tidying up, when the voices from a booth caught her attention. There were 3 men, huddled close together, their words low and conspiratorial. Shipment, one of them uttered, followed by another, disposal. A chill crept down Sarah's spine. Her heart began racing. Could it be about Mrs. Collins? The beloved teacher from down the street who had vanished without a trace? Surely they were just crazy drunkards, weaving tales to pass the time. She turned back to her counter, pushing away the growing sense of dread. After all, this wasn't Boston, this was small-town Georgia. People didn't just disappear, did they? But with each passing night, as familiar faces began to fade from the diner, Sarah felt the tight coil of fear settle around her heart. The jukebox played a broken tune that sounded like a warning. Sarah's teenage son, Ethan, often accompanied her after school. She worried for him, but when she mentioned her fears, he scoffed. "Mom, it's just gossip. You're being paranoid." How could he not see how things were changing? It was as if a dark cloud loomed over the town, and with each passing day, it felt heavier. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. In the days that followed, the eeriness escalated. The jukebox played distorted snippets of childhood songs, teasing her nostalgia while igniting her fear. Voices from the past taunted her, growing louder, murmuring about secrets buried beneath the small-town charm. Sarah couldn't shake off the feeling that someone was watching her. Each ding of the clock sent her heart into a frantic rhythm, a countdown to whatever awaited her discovery. Unearthly fears were surfacing. She remembered how Mrs. Collins had taken such an interest in Ethan's studies, offering gentle encouragement always with that unnaturally sweet smile. How well had she learned to weave around their lives, drawing them into her web? The sweetness felt sticky, suffocating. Just as Sarah pieced together the twisted threads connecting her beloved teacher to the missing townsfolk, a shadow loomed behind her. Turning slowly, she found herself face to face with none other than Mrs. Collins. The way her eyes glinted, sharp and predatory, sent a wave of icy panic through Sarah's veins. The diner, once a sanctuary, now felt like a trap. And as the walls seemed to close in around her, she understood, the nightmare had only begun. Would she be able to protect Ethan from the truth lurking beneath their normal lives? Sarah's breath hitched, and the diner's air went thick with an oppressive weight that seemed to wrap around her throat. Mrs. Collins' smile twisted into something sinister, revealing teeth too sharp, too knowing. "Sarah," she said sweetly, but it sounded like a threat. "I've been looking for you." The diner felt smaller, claustrophobic. The flickering neon light pulsed like a heartbeat, a grim reminder that time was running out. Sarah's mind skittered, searching for thoughts that could anchor her. "What do you want?" she gasped, stepping back, the counter cold against her palms. "Oh, just a little chat," Mrs. Collins replied, voice dripping with syrupy malice. "I've come to share some educational insights." "You're not here to teach anything," Sarah countered, heart racing, eyes darting around for an escape. The men in the booth had gone silent, their eyes fixed on her, hungry smiles betraying their intentions. "What have you done to the others?" Mrs. Collins tilted her head, curiosity dancing across her features. "Doesn't it just make you wonder? Where did they go?" "I prefer to think of it as a selection process. Only the most devoted remain." Panic surged through Sarah like electricity. She remembered the stories, the faces that had vanished one after another long before Mrs. Collins had drifted into their lives. The beloved teacher with her gentle hands and patient ways, now wearing a mask of horror. "Get away from me!" Sarah yelled, the words bursting from her lips like a dam breaking. She turned to run, but the diner door loomed like a mirage. The laughter of the men turned into a low growl, each moment stretching like a tightrope about to snap. Were they complicit? Would they help her or welcome the depths of darkness? As she sprinted toward the door, a heavy thud echoed behind her. The jukebox screeched as it came to life, blaring a distorted version of "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star." The innocence of the melody clashed grotesquely with the terror spiraling inside her mind. Was it just a game, a distraction, or was it a signal? A hand shot out, gripping her shoulder and spinning her around. Face to face with Ethan, his eyes wide with confusion. "Mom, what is going on?" "Ethan, we need to get out," Sarah urged, panic clawing at her voice. She glanced around, seeking help from anyone. But the diner felt abandoned, as if time had folded around them. "Mom, you're scaring me." But didn't he see what she saw, the madness lurking beneath the surface of their quiet town? Mrs. Collins laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the diner, wrapping around them like smoke. "You think you can run?" she sneered. "You think you can protect him?" Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, plunging them into darkness. The power pulsed, then surged back. But now, the diner was not as they had left it. Tables were overturned, chairs scattered like fallen soldiers on the battlefield of chaos. Shadows danced with malevolent intent. "Ethan! Follow me!" Sarah shouted, eyes burning with tears of terror as they raced toward the shattered door. But would it lead to safety or further into the darkness consuming the town? As they burst outside, the cool night air felt like a reprieve, but the ominous laughter chased them into the abyss. Could they truly escape the nightmare that awaited? What horrors lay waiting beyond the lingering shadows? Questions raced through Sarah's mind as she clutched Ethan's hand. Why did Mrs. Collins look so different now? And why did the shadows around them feel so alive? A dark truth whispered just out of reach, and she knew they were far from safe. The street stretched before them, empty and eerie. Streetlights flickered sickly yellow halos that blinked like hesitant eyes, casting long shadows that writhed across the pavement. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest, a relentless drum signaling their flight. "Mom! Where do we go?" Ethan's voice quivered, fear rippling through the words. She could see the worry etched on his small face, eyes darting to the corners, expecting the darkness to spring to life. "Anywhere but here!" Sarah yelled, urgency flooding her veins. But where could they go? She had to keep moving. Mrs. Collins' warnings echoed in her ears. Each step felt like a countdown. They dashed down the street, the cold air biting at their skin. Sarah noticed a flicker of movement from a nearby alley. A flash of gray, a whisper of shadows. "Did you see that?" she asked, barely breathing. "What?" Ethan's gaze was fixed straight ahead. "Stay close," she reminded him, grip tightening on his hand. The last thing she wanted was to lose him in this maze of darkness. As they neared a corner, Sarah slowed, peeking around the edge. The alley was heavy with silence. There was no sign of life, only the distant clank of metal and a faint sound like hushed conversation seeping through the brick walls. Then she saw an old sign swinging above a door, paint peeling off. "Café Ether," it read, like a ghost from another time. Dim light flickered from inside, erratic like a heartbeat. "Should we?" she whispered, uncertain. Ethan's eyes widened. "What if they're like Mrs. Collins? That's why we check. We're not safe out here." The weight of her own words crushed her. Was entering a strange place a mistake? The terror gnawed at her neck. But inaction wasn't an option. Steeling herself, Sarah pushed the door open. It groaned like a tired old man. The café smelled of burnt coffee and despair. A few flickering bulbs cast soft illumination over the scattered tables full of crooked chairs, but no one sat waiting. "Hello?" Sarah called, her voice small, reverberating against the walls. Echoes filled the empty space, reminding her of how alone they truly were. A figure emerged from the shadows, wiping down the bar. It was a woman with tattered clothing and hollow eyes. There was something familiar about her, the way she held herself, her slow movements. "Welcome," the woman said, her voice grainy like rusted metal. "You're far from home." "Please, we need help," Sarah pleaded, glancing back at Ethan who was fidgeting, uncertain. "Help isn't given freely here." The woman smiled, not a reassuring smile, but one that held secrets deeper than the abyss beyond. "You have to pay a price." "What do you mean?" Sarah felt the chill creep up her spine. Had they stepped into another trap? "You've entered the realm of choices, my dear," the woman said, voice thick with mischief. "Some decisions you make, others are made for you. Forget this place, Mom. Let us go." Ethan tugged on her arm, his instincts screaming. "Not yet," Sarah whispered, assessing the cafe, the shadows seeming to grace the walls. "What choices?" The woman leaned closer, her breath a gust of frost. "To know the truth about your beloved Mrs. Collins, you must let go of what you hold dear." "What does that mean?" Panic surged like a tidal wave within her. Could letting go mean losing Ethan? As Sarah searched for answers in the woman's eyes, the diner laughter echoed again, far away yet hauntingly near. She felt the ground tremble beneath them, a low rumble that resonated with her fears. "Choose wisely, dear." The woman stepped back, melding with the shadows. "You may find yourself trapped, or freed." Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the tense atmosphere, and Sarah felt the air shift dangerously. A shadow loomed at the door they had just entered through, dark and terrible. "Ethan, run!" But as she turned to flee, that same laughter rang through the cafe, now mingled with sinister whispers. Entities danced in the dim corners, beckoning her toward the abyss. How could she get them both out? With the figure in the doorway advancing, the choice became clearer by the second. Stay and learn the perilous truth or flee into the unknown. Alice's descent into Wonderland paled in comparison to the choice unfolding before her. What if those choices drew them deeper into the horror? What lay waiting in the depths of Mrs. Collins' twisted world, and would they make it out alive? The shadow at the door loomed larger, swallowing the flickering light around it. Sarah felt panic claw its way up her throat as she turned back to face the cafe's chilling interior. "No!" she gasped, yanking Ethan closer to her side. The laughter from the dark corners of the room turned chaotic, a cacophony of mocking giggles and whispers that twisted her stomach into knots. "Mom, what is happening?" Ethan trembled, his innocent eyes wide with terror. It's okay. Just don't look at it," she managed, knowing her voice wasn't as steady as she wanted it to be. The shadow seemed to morph, an amorphous being that wasn't just taking form, it was feeding on their fear. She could feel its hunger, promised by the echoing jeers that merged into a malevolent rhythm. With a single step, the shadow broke into motion. The cafe's once still atmosphere became a tempest of clattering dishes and swinging chairs. Sarah pulled Ethan tightly, feeling the heat of his small body against her. "Let us get to the back," she shouted over the chaos, gripping his hand tightly as they dashed past the bar where the woman had disappeared, her figure consumed by the dark. They sprinted through the cafe, tables and chairs rising like menacing sentinels in their path. A flickering bulb overhead shattered with an explosive crack, splashing shards like deadly confetti across the floor. Sarah pushed forward, hyper-aware of the echoing laughter that rose in pitch, the shadow towering closer behind. They burst through a door at the far end, stumbling into a dim hallway, and paused to catch their breath. The walls lined with peeling wallpaper whispered dreadful secrets, their patterns twisting from mundane flowers into monstrous faces when Sarah glanced too long. "Mom," Ethan heaved, his breath labored. What if we can't get out?" "We will," she promised, though doubt crept in like fog winding around her heart. Every instinct screamed for her to tread lightly, to listen to the silence wrapping around them. But the silence was suddenly split by the soft creaking of floorboards. They weren't alone. A figure stepped from the shadows, its face obscured by a hood. But there was no mistaking the familiar outline. Sarah's stomach dropped as recognition struck, the same rusted metal voice echoing from the cafe now lingering like a dark cloud. "Come to pay your price?" it crooned, lifting a skeletal hand. "What will it be? The boy or the truth?" Ethan recoiled against Sarah, the fear radiating off him palpable. "Mom, don't! You can't make that choice." Sarah's heart raced. "Let him go." The figure tilted its head, mockingly considering her plea. "But you already have. The choice lies before you. Lives can be given or taken, but once made, they are irreversible. You don't have to listen," she urged Ethan, gripping his shoulders like he was a lifeline in a storm. "We can still escape." But the laughter rose again, vibrant and alive, as if the shadows themselves reveled in their impending doom. The hallway stretched endlessly beyond, dark and unfathomable. Every beat of Sarah's heart drummed against her ribcage, pushing her down a path she couldn't see. "Choose," the figure hissed, stepping closer, its features slowly unfurling in the gloom, a face twisted in malevolence, resembling Mrs. Collins yet utterly transformed. Everything in Sarah screamed to flee, but they were trapped, the walls closing in with every second. Her breaths quickened, desperation spiking like a fever. "Mom!" Ethan's eyes searched hers, shimmering with tears but laced with determination. "We'll figure it out together. I promise." Could they? Could they truly escape a choice that felt like fate itself? As the shadow loomed larger, Sarah felt something shift in her gut. The price was no longer abstract. It felt real, imminent, looming like a guillotine. What was the truth worth? The laughter darkened the hall, growing in frenzy as the figure reached for them. Time slowed as Sarah felt the weight of a singular question pressing down. Could they face a revelation worse than what they already knew? And what lurked behind the door they hadn't yet opened, the door that promised clarity or destruction? "Sarah, run!" Ethan screamed, his voice breaking through the madness, awakening a primal instinct deep within her. But as the figure lunged, the air thick with dread, only one thought consumed her: choices come with prices, and they were about to pay dearly. Where would that momentum lead them, toward freedom or deeper into the void? Ethan's voice erupted with urgency, pulling Sarah back from the precipice of despair. In sharp, jagged breaths, they turned to flee, but the figure moved faster, its gnarled hands stretching like shadows eager to catch them. Sarah felt a cold rush of panic surge as they sprinted down the dim corridor, darkness clawing at their heels. "Mom!" Ethan's voice broke again, desperate, now splintered by their fear. The creeping dread seeped into her thoughts, urging her to ignore the indelible grasp of fear wrapped around her heart. "We're almost there. Just keep running," she yelled, willing the sounds of chaos behind them to silence, though the mocking laughter echoed louder, vibrating off the walls. The hall widened into an open area, a forgotten storage room with barrels stacked like tombs in the corners. Old chairs and broken tables littered the ground, shadows looming like ghosts hungry for recognition. As they paused to steady themselves, Sarah looked around desperately, seeking anything that could be a way out. Ethan clutched her arm, his small body shaking. "What do we do?" His eyes darted, searching the room for safety that wasn't there. The laughter, a nefarious melody, floated back to them, now accompanied by the creaking of the floor as the figure slid across the threshold. Sarah felt trapped, corners closing in like the grip of a vice. Desperate moments call for desperate measures. "Ethan, stay close," she ordered, and they stepped back into the shadows, trying to become invisible in a room that felt far too small. The figure stopped just inside the doorway, the dim light casting sharp angles across its sinister features. "Truth or survival?" it asked, each hiss laden with malice. Sarah's fingers trembled, a wildfire of fear spreading through her as she realized they were cornered. Ethan squeezed her hand tighter, an anchor amidst the overwhelming tide of despair. "We can't let it take you, Mom!" he cried. "There's got to be something we can do. Listen to me." Her tone softened, a futile attempt to ease the storm raging inside him. "Whatever happens, just remember you're my whole world." She needed him to stay brave. The figure tilted its head, a twisted smirk curling its lips. How noble, Mother, it taunted, but every sacrifice has its cost. What will you pay? With every breath, Sarah felt reckoning closing in, a primordial fear knotted in her stomach. She shot a glance around the room, hoping to find anything that might help. An old door stood ajar in the far corner, its surface marred by time yet inviting curiosity. Ethan, we need to go. Now! She shouted. They dashed toward the door, but as they reached it, its wood groaned like it was alive, holding them back. The figure laughed, the sound echoing grotesquely, filling every crevice of the room. You choose the truth, then, or perhaps obscurity. It cackled. With a quick push, they burst through the door, tumbling down an unlit staircase that spiraled like a serpent into the depths below. The darkness enveloped them, a murky abyss that soaked up the last remnants of light. Mom! Where are we? Ethan whimpered, fear igniting in his voice again. Sure, listen, Sarah instructed, straining to hear over the beating of their hearts. A faint sound echoed, a drip, 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 as if the walls themselves were weeping. Then a growl resonated low from the shadows, primal and hungry. It sent a jolt through Sarah, her instincts yelling to flee, but there was nowhere to escape. We need to find a way out, she urged, her voice trembling in the darkness. The growl grew closer, a menacing promise that something lurked beyond their vision. They retreated further down the stairs, the air thick with fear, until they reached a solid wall. The weight of something awful loomed behind them, and they had to decide: stay and face whatever monstrous truth dwelled below, or find another path back through the cafe that had already betrayed them. Mom, I can't go back, Ethan whispered, his voice laced with desperation. Neither can we stay, she replied, trembling at the uncertainty of what lay before them. The dripping sound rose to a crescendo, and she felt the air thicken like a prelude to horror. But darker thoughts crept in. What truth did they risk unveiling? In that arena of fear, a single thought clawed its way to the surface: what awaited them behind the next corner, freedom or the depths of despair? The choice wasn't merely between truths. It was a choice that could seal their fates forever. The air grew heavier, thick with the scent of damp earth and something metallic. Sarah pressed herself against the wall, heart pounding in her throat as she searched for a sign, a glimmer of hope that they could escape. The low growl pulsed, sending chills skittering down her spine. She could feel the darkness wrapping around them, suffocating and merciless. Mom, what if it finds us? Ethan's voice, a trembling whisper, turned her stomach. We'll find a way, she insisted, forcing a sense of calm into her voice, though doubt brewed in her mind like a storm. Tightening her grip on Ethan's hand, she led him toward the shadows, pushing forward as the growls morphed into guttural sounds of anticipation. A sudden noise shattered the stillness. A crash echoed, reverberating through the stairwell. It was followed by a cacophony of shrieks, shrill and piercing, that made Sarah's blood run cold. The distant sound was a chorus of desperation, pulling from the darkness behind them. She tasted fear on her tongue, metallic and bitter. Do you hear that? She shouted over the din, her voice breaking. Yeah, it's coming from behind us, Ethan blurted out, his wide eyes darting back toward the staircase as another crash sent reverberations through their bones. No, down. She pointed toward the bottom of the staircase, the deeper darkness that loomed like a hungry beast. We have to see what's down there. Ethan shivered but nodded, steeling himself for whatever awaited them. They crept down, one shaky step at a time. The droplets they heard earlier intensified quicker now, and mingled with something softer, like whispers bouncing off stone walls. Sarah yanked Ethan closer as she strained to catch any words, but they fell into nothingness. The staircase opened into a cavernous underground space, illuminated only by streaks of silver creeping through cracks in the walls. Shadows danced wildly as they ventured further, revealing surreal faces carved into the damp stone. Each seemed to plead with them, trapped in eternal anguish, eyes hollow and open in a scream frozen in time. Mom, this is wrong. I don't like this, Ethan murmured, a slight shake in his voice that shattered her heart. We'll be okay, just keep your eyes on me, she urged, but confidence began to waver as the rhythmic dripping escalated to a steady drumbeat. Each drip now sounded like a heartbeat, echoing the fear thrumming in her chest. Suddenly, a figure lunged into the dim light, a shadow, morphing into a monstrous creature with jagged teeth glistening like shards of glass. The growl reverberated from deep within its chest, primal and commanding. "Stay or pay the price." Sarah's lungs constricted, fear seizing her, as she felt Ethan quivering beside her. In that moment, they were not just faced with a monster, it felt like the weight of every choice they had ever made bearing down on them. "Run!" Her voice exploded like a slingshot, and they bolted deeper into the cavern, heart racing, adrenaline flooding their veins. The growls followed, relentless and furious, merging into a haunting melody twisted with pain and rage. The shadows shifted, whispering promises of truth that felt like acid drenching her mind. Was there an escape, or were they only running toward an abyss? "Mom! Which way?" Ethan gasped, searching desperately. A sudden flash of light flickered from the far corner, illuminating a narrow passage lined with broken stone and glistening with moisture. A guide or a trap? "Over there!" Sarah pointed, and they dashed toward the light, each step a gamble against whatever dark fate chased them. But as they neared the passage, a chilling laughter echoed through the cavern, echoing off the walls, folding around them like a noose. "You think you can escape the truth? You will all pay." Harry pounding in her ears, Sarah twisted to face the oncoming terror, each breath shorter than the last. What truth awaited at the exit, and could they survive its sinister embrace? As they reached the threshold, she felt a powerful force pressing against her back. This choice could end it all or seal them to a horror worse than death. 3 more steps toward an uncertain future loomed ahead, light or darkness, truth or despair? The final decision was upon them, but at what cost? The narrow passage swallowed them whole, the light flickering like a dying star behind them. Shadows stretched and retreated, mocking their escape. Sarah could feel the pulse of the creature behind them, growing closer, the growl becoming a frenzied roar that shook her resolve. "Mom, hurry!" Ethan's voice trembled, coated in fear that twisted Sarah's heart. With every step they took, the ground felt more unstable, the damp stones slick beneath their feet. It was as if the earth itself wanted to claim them. The laughter still echoed, disappearing into the shadows, but the whispers remained. They pulsed through the air like an echo of something long forgotten, promises and threats wrapped in a sinister embrace. "Where are we going?" Ethan cried out, desperate as the walls began to close in, making the passage feel tighter, more claustrophobic. "I don't know," Sarah shouted back, dread making her throat raw. "We just need to keep moving." Ahead, darkness clawed at them, hungry and ravenous. But the flickering light promised a sanctuary or perhaps a deeper trap. Clenching Ethan's hand, she pulled him forward, scanning the walls for any sign, a clue, anything that might help them make sense of this nightmare. Then, they stumbled into a wider chamber, the ground uneven, littered with rocks and fragments that felt like the remnants of lost souls. The light faded, replaced by an unsettling gloom that seeped into the very sinews of her being. The air felt electric with dread, each breath heavy and thick, as if it carried the weight of 1,000 fears. "Mom, look!" Ethan pointed, his voice barely a whisper. Sarah's heart froze. In the center of the chamber, an altar stood, covered in a thick layer of dust. On it lay what looked like bones, some small, some large, all intricate in their arrangement, as if they had been placed there with a purpose. "This is wrong," she breathed, pulling Ethan closer. "We shouldn't be here." In that moment, a roiling shadow whipped through the chamber, and from it, the creature emerged, a grotesque parody of a man, its face contorted in rage. "You are not welcome," it bellowed, voice like molten lead. "You should have stayed hidden." Behind Sarah, the passage they had fled through began to shimmer, a mirage of an escape becoming more opaque by the second. She felt the crush of panic, closing in as the walls of the chamber seemed to pulse, the heartbeat of the creature matching the echoing dread in her chest. "Run!" she shouted again, desperation driving her. They darted away from the altar, towards a flicker of possibility, as the shadows around them twisted in indignation. "Mom, wait!" Ethan cried, stumbling. A stone caught his foot, and he fell, skinning his knees on the rough surface. "No! Get up!" Sarah screamed, her heart stopping in her chest. The laughter returned, louder now, mingling with the growls, drowning out her thoughts. Ethan scrambled to his feet, tears spilling down his cheeks. "I can't do this." "Yes, you can." She pulled him forward, framing her words with urgency. "We're almost there." The passage behind them collapsed with a thunderous roar, the dark laughter rising to a crescendo. The creature's snarl shook her body to the core. The sound peeled away every shred of hope as shadows lashed out. They could almost feel the breath of the monster against their backs. They reached the new exit, a doorway just in sight, light spilling out from it like a beacon, but it felt like a cruel trick. Was that truly a way out, or another deception? "What's stopping us?" Ethan cried, fear clear in his eyes. "Trust me." She launched toward the light, abandoning caution as she felt the walls beginning to quiver. But as they crossed the threshold, the ground trembled violently beneath them. The dark figure lunged, extending its claws, just inches from Ethan's back. "Mom!" he screamed. She pushed him through the doorway. The light swallowed him whole, but as she dove in after him, a shadow grasped her ankle, pulling her back with a force that made her scream. "No! No!" Sarah gasped as she fought against its grip, a chilling realization. Creeping in, the price of escape was steep. In that instant, as darkness threatened to engulf her, time froze. A voice echoed in her mind, chilling her to the bone. "You cannot escape the truth." With a last horrifying glimpse of Ethan disappearing into the light, the darkness claimed her. What had she sacrificed to save him, and what awaited beyond? Was it safety or an inescapable curse? The walls of darkness throbbed with life, drawing closer as the laughter echoed once more. What price would Sarah pay for her truth? In the heavy silence, dread hung, waiting to reveal itself. The darkness surrounded Sarah like a suffocating blanket, wrapping tightly around her body as she felt herself being dragged deeper into its cold embrace. She clawed at the shadows, trying to break free, but each movement seemed only to sink her further into despair. Echoes of Ethan's terrified cry rang in her ears, twisting her stomach into knots. This darkness was alive. It pulsed and breathed, weaving itself into the very fabric of her being. "Mom!" The desperate plea reverberated, haunting her as she thrashed against the unseen menace tightening its grip. In the midst of her panic, she felt a sudden jolt as if the darkness itself had recognized her fear and was shaking her resolve. Then, just as quickly as it had seized her, a blinding flash of light ruptured through the blackness, illuminating her surroundings. For a fleeting moment, clarity pierced through the haze. Before her sprawled an expanse of endless white. It was unsettling, alien, and eerily quiet. There were no walls, no ceilings, just a vast emptiness stretching into infinity. The light bathed everything in a sterile glow, playing tricks on her eyes. "Ethan!" she shouted, heart racing. But no answer came. Only the sound of her own voice echoed back, swallowed by the void. Slowly, cautious dread crept back, overshadowing her fleeting relief. This place felt wrong, too calm, too quiet. In the far distance, she caught a glimpse of movement, shadows flitting across the periphery of her vision. Maybe it was hope. Or perhaps another trap. Clenching her fists, Sarah pressed forward, each step resonating with uncertainty. The ground felt unusually firm, yet shifting like sand beneath her feet. She searched for anything, a sign of Ethan, a mark, something to anchor her to reality. Suddenly, a voice, smooth and malevolent, slithered through the air. "Welcome, Sarah." She froze. The tone dripped with malice, familiar yet hauntingly sinister. "Who's there?" she demanded, voice trembling against the impartial void. "Your sacrifice has intrigued the dark," the voice continued, echoing around her like a twisted lullaby. "For every light that shines, shadows must grow." Her breath caught in her throat. Memories flickered like faulty neon lights, drowning her in fear. Ethan's laughter. His tiny hands in hers. A bond forged by love, now threatened by something far more sinister than she could comprehend. "Let him go!" she cried out, desperation fueling her resolve. With that, the shadows deepened, swirling and merging, until they took on a ghostly form, shifting and twisting with purpose. In the shimmering darkness, she could see faces testaments to the lost, eyes wide with terror, mouths stretching in silent screams. "You think you can reclaim that which was given?" The voice twisted around her, making the air thick with dread. "You owe a debt now, one that must be paid." The ground began to tremble again, vibrations glazing the surface beneath her. The faces in the darkness shifted closer, and Sarah felt a cold chill wrap around her heart. She could not let them take Ethan, not now. "No!" she shouted defiantly, summoning all her courage. "I will not pay. I refuse to be a part of this." But the laughter returned, deep and echoing, merging with the pulse of the darkness. It tightened around her like a noose, squeezing the air from her lungs. The void surged, and she sensed its hunger, an insatiable desire that reached into the depths of her soul. In that moment, realization washed over her like ice water. She wasn't just fighting for her son. She was fighting against the sins of her past, and the weight of a choice that was yet to come. With frantic determination, she forced her way through the gathering storm of shadows, trying to find a way back to the light. A flicker caught her eye, an opening, a promise. Ethan's face, pale and terrified, materialized in her mind. She would not lose him, she could not. "Ethan! I'm coming!" she screamed, the sound fueled by primal instinct. As the shadows converged, pushing her towards hopelessness, she charged, propelled by a fierce love. The light flickered once more, brightening in response, as a guttural scream erupted from the depths of the dark, a rampage of fury clawing at her escape. But the moment of clarity amidst the chaos had birthed an indomitable will, a determination that would either free her or consume her entirely. The chamber began to tremble anew, and as she drew closer to the light, she could almost hear a distant whisper in the wind. "The truth demands a price. What would she sacrifice to save Ethan? Would it be her very soul?" The question hung heavy in the air, thick and palpable, as the shadows writhed around her, daring her to move forward. In the storm of terror and confusion, uncertainty loomed as a new horror awaited beyond that threshold. What awaited them on the other side? The air thickened, wrapping around Sarah like an icy shroud as she surged towards the flickering light. It pulsed, urging her on, but the shadows were relentless. They writhed and whispered, clawing at her consciousness. Memories flooded her mind, laughter, bedtime stories, and the comforting weight of Ethan's head on her shoulder. The smile that had once filled their home now felt like a distant echo lost in this nightmare. The ground trembled beneath her again, almost as if it were warning her to turn back. The darkness hissed, gnarled voices intertwining, painting horrific tales of the lost. They spoke of lives consumed, sacrifices made to appease the insatiable dark. It was a testament to despair she refused to embrace. "Ethan!" she shouted, desperation lacing her voice. Would he hear her? Would he respond? A pulse of light surged ahead, stronger now, illuminating the streaks of shadow curling around her. She felt their cold, clammy breath on her skin, and panic clawed at her throat. Would they smother her? Would she succumb, just like the others? A flash of silver caught her eye, something glimmering against the void. She veered towards it, her heart thundering in her chest. But before she could reach for it, the shadows lurched forward, coiling around her legs, dragging her downward. The weight of the darkness pressed against her, squeezing against her ribcage like a vice. An image flickered in the periphery, Ethan's face, sharp with fear but also hope. He was trapped, just like her. Sarah, his voice floated through the chaos, a single beacon of clarity in the maelstrom. "Find me." "No! I won't leave you!" she screamed, the words seeping with resolve as she fought against the grasp of the shadows. "Every light demands a sacrifice." The malicious voice echoed through the abyss. "You must choose, Sarah. Choose." The darkness sashayed around her in a grotesque dance, tempting, teasing. She felt the cold familiarity of those long-buried decisions clawing to the surface. Choices she had made, the painful memories, the regrets, ones that surfaced like ghosts. Each one demanded payment, a currency of fear. "Please!" she gasped, as the shadows slithered along her arms, whispering promises of safety in exchange for her compliance. I want my son back. Each word felt like a prayer, a desperate plea that fell on deaf ears. The shadows shrieked, a cacophony of lost souls in a spiraling tempest of despair. They drew closer, and Sarah could see their faces more clearly now, twisted, grotesque, reminders of those who had fallen before. A deep sense of dread settled in the pit of her stomach. But then, between their mournful wails, she heard something else, a heartbeat. Soft, distant, rhythmic. Was it Ethan? Was he alive? Mom! The urgency in his voice tore through her like shards of glass. You have to hurry. Her heart raced, and somehow, fueled by the love for her child, she found strength. She closed her eyes, focused on that heartbeat, her tether, her anchor. With a surge of defiance, she unleashed a cry that echoed through the darkness. I will not let you have him. The shadows screamed in fury, a palpable anger that reverberated through her bones. Light flared violently around her, illuminating the faces of the lost, frozen in torment. This was her moment to push back. With everything she had, she lunged toward the blinding light, reaching through the fear, through the darkness clinging like cobwebs against her skin. It enveloped her like a warm blanket, pushing the shadows away, if only for a moment. But within that moment, she sensed something shift. Beneath the brilliance, a new darkness began to bloom, a darker, deeper force that had been stirring in the corners of her mind. And then, chillingly, she realized she could feel it stirring behind her. Would the light be enough to hold back the darkness, or would she be overtaken by the very thing she fought against? As the shadows twisted and howled, two paths lay before her, one led backward toward the oppressive dark, and the other bore the comforting glow, but both came at a terrifying cost. What would she choose when the truth finally revealed itself? When the price of her freedom was painfully clear? The light pulsed like a heartbeat, drawing Sarah closer, blinding and beautiful. With each step, the shadows writhed behind her, a swirling mass of fury and despair. I won't let you take him, she thundered, her defiance igniting a fire in her chest that flared against the encroaching dark. Suddenly, the swirling shadows coalesced into a haunting visage, the features of Mrs. Collins morphing within. You can't protect him forever, Sarah. He belongs to us now. The voice slithered through the air, wrapping around her heart and squeezing tight. Not while I'm still breathing, she shouted back, channeling all the love and strength she had for Ethan into those words. I will fight for him. As the light beckoned her, she could see a glimmer of hope, the exit. Beyond it lay the promise of freedom and warmth, the sweet, sunlight-infused air that felt like a distant memory. But an overpowering chill washed over her, seeped into her resolve, as if the countless lost souls were reaching out, grabbing her with desperate hands. Ethan's voice echoed again through the suffocating darkness. Mom! Help me! Ethan! I'm coming! With a newfound surge of adrenaline, she pushed forward, her body moving almost on instinct. But the dark presence roared, a cacophony of mockery and chaos drawing closer, the shadows snarling with rage. Leave now and let him go. Embrace our truth. No! The defiance boiled over inside her, every painful memory surfacing to fortify her determination. The laughter grew monstrous, echoing across the vast chamber as she pushed through the last veil of darkness. Suddenly, a chilling realization gripped her. The light wasn't just a path to freedom, it was also a test. Would she leave behind the weight of her choices? Would she walk away from what she had sacrificed? Every second felt like an eternity as time stretched, wrapping her in torment. I won't abandon you, she roared, turning back one last time to face the shadows lunging forward. You want my truth? Here it is. I chose to protect him above all. I'll pay any price to save him. Light surrounded her suddenly, ripping apart the oppressive dark, and instinctively, she lunged forward. She felt the energy surge through her body, a tidal wave of warmth, enveloping her as the shadows shrieked in fury. Fragments of memories flooded her mind, Ethan's laughter, his small frame nestled in her arms, bedtime stories filled with adventure, fingers interlocked during their quiet moments. With those images, the memory solidified her strength, fueling every muscle in her being. Ethan appeared in her mind's eye again, and she envisioned him standing free of that darkness, smiling. That image was her weapon, her armor. Together, Ethan! Always together! She encouraged, her voice breaking through the chaos like a ray of sunlight through storm clouds. With every ounce of love and conviction, she propelled herself into the light. The world erupted around her. As she collided with the brilliance, time ceased to exist. She felt weightless, as if the very fabric of darkness had unraveled, torn apart by her will. The whispers faded, the shadows shrieked, and the laughter dissolved into silence. And then she was through. Bright warmth engulfed her, and she gasped for breath, light pouring in like morning dew after a long night. For a brief moment, time hung suspended. As the brilliance faded, she found herself in the diner, the air fresh and vibrant. The walls, adorned with familiar colors, signaled home. But the shadows remaining at her back had changed. They were now remnants of the battle behind her, whispers of what could have been specters of the truth she had faced. "Ethan!" she called, scanning the tables in a rush, desperately searching for her son. And there he was, standing by the jukebox, staring wide-eyed at the flickering mechanics, as if time had stood still for him. When he turned, their eyes met, and she saw the familiar light in his own. "Mom!" Ethan ran toward her, and she fell to her knees, enveloping him in a fierce hug. "You came back." "Always," she promised, her voice thick with emotion. "I will always come back for you." In that moment, the shadows receded, fading against the hum of life returning to the diner. The weight of the choices they survived lingered in her heart, a reminder of the dark they had faced. Yet it was a weight they would bear together, stretching toward a life renewed. Sarah looked up, her heart lightening as warmth flooded her. "Never again," she murmured, pulling back from Ethan, wiping away a stray tear. "Never again will I let fear take hold." As they stood united, the diner bustled back to life, and outside, the dawn began to break. They had escaped the terrors that threatened to consume them, but the fight for their truth and their choice to move forward had only just begun. "Come on, let us get some pancakes," Sarah said, her smile bright now. She took Ethan's hand in hers, their fingers woven together like the fabric of their resilience. The path ahead shimmered in the morning light, a promise of new beginnings grounded in the truth they would carry together. The end. But a new beginning awaited now. Don't forget subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive stories that will blow your mind. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. And I want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this mind-bending conclusion. You need to share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely have to see how this epic saga wraps up. Don't wait even one more second. True fans know how important your support is. Let us keep this community growing and thriving together.